Hi, my name is Braden Hansen. I'm going to talk about China's environment since the 2008 Olympic Games. So, an overview of China's environment. So, when China first got their bid to have the Olympics, they were at risk of not being able to have the Olympics strictly because of their pollution, and officials were scared for the safety of the professional athletes and other people that were going to be there by the sheer amount of people. So China used one, getting the Olympics, and two, improving their air quality as a way to positively raise their image. So it became known as one of the most expensive Olympic Games in history because, for one, they spent $42.9 billion on just building facilities like for track and field, the pool, all the other facilities they had to use in the water, and also the Olympic Village. And then they also used between 10 and $17 billion on trying to improve the air quality alone, whether it was trying to shut down plants that were being polluted, and in all of the Beijing area there were plants that just weren't able to run anymore for those 30 days. Coal plants, which they needed to run basic functions, had to reduce their emissions by 30%, and they raised gas taxes to the point, or gas prices, to the point where people were so deterred from driving because of how expensive they were, and people that could drive, depending on how their license plate ended in an odd or even number, they could only drive on that corresponding day. So, measuring the air quality, scientists compared China to 28 other countries that futurely held the Olympics or were going to hold the Olympics in the future, and these events were held in China. So they measured Beijing, of course, where that was the main city, and they also measured 3 cities around Beijing and then other cities in China that they were also using to host Olympic sports. And they tested the air in 3 periods of time before the Olympics, back in 2001 up to 2008, before the Olympics started, when the Olympics are going on, so those 30 days where the Olympics and the Paralympics are going on, and then in the years after. And the tests they used were API, which is the Air Pollution Index, which measured the amount of sulfur dioxide and nitrogen dioxide suspended in the air. And they also used the aerosol optical depth, which was a measurement of the airborne and solid and liquid particulates that can absorb, reflect, and scatter the electromagnetic radiation. So this is a couple pictures to show air quality. In this picture over here, you can kind of see this is China, and Beijing is specifically in the middle, and you can kind of see the haze over it just to show how bad the pollution really was in China. And once you get right out of China and into the more rural areas, or even out of China just in general, it automatically clears up. And this is a chart to show the difference in air quality between Beijing, London, New York, and LA. And surprisingly, New York, like contrary to how you might think about how many cars and things are going on, New York is about the smallest in most of the categories. And then London and Los Angeles, who you know for their smog and other bad air quality, are pretty bad in comparison to New York. But then when you look at red, which is Beijing, it blows everybody out of the water almost all the way through the year. So testing the results, API in Beijing in 2001, when they first got the bid for the Olympics, was at 109.01. During the games, so those 30 days and when the games are going on and a little bit of time before, it dropped all the way down to 76.69, and most of those improvements didn't come gradually, they all came right before the games when all of those laws were enacted. 1 month after the games, when the laws were done, it raised back up to 82.52, and a year after the laws were completely just ignored, it went all the way up to 96.29. And AOD was a little bit harder to measure because air particulates can stay in the air longer, but in 2009 it was shown that the levels increased. So how air quality changes affected the civilians in China. So tests were conducted between cities based on a mortality rate due to cardiovascular or heart disease, because those are the most likely linked diseases to air pollution. And while the laws were in place, air quality went down drastically. There was a 10% decrease in PM10, which is particulate matter that measured smaller than 10 micrometers, and it equated to a 7% decrease in deaths per 100,000 people. And this is equivalent to saving 196,000 premature deaths. And on an economic side of it, thinking about it, economic benefits that researchers estimate are between $58 billion and $1 trillion per year, and based on a statistical evaluation of life, and calculated to be between 0.24 and 3.84 million yuan in China. So this is a kind of a simple way to look at the air quality that was changed in China while the games are going on. This is a picture of before and after the laws were really enacted, and luckily they had scientists induce special stuff into the rain that was going to scrub it, and they got the rain right before, so it really helped clear out some of the smog. And Chinese authorities said that the PM10 level of the first picture on the left was 72 and the after picture was 24, but the Associated Press, which measures worldwide standards, said that the left was 157 and the right was 19. And to put the 157 and even the 72 in perspective, in Los Angeles, a PM10 level of over 50 is considered hazardous to the people that are living in it. So China was obviously hurting their civilians, and like I said in the last slide, just changing it down to a 19 greatly saved lives and just improved the overall quality of where they were. So what should be done? For one, the fact that they just stopped enforcing those laws that was proven to work was their biggest problem. I feel that if you kept those laws in place, even though some of them were more drastic, so being able to keep some of those plants obviously running because that's part of their economy, and some of those coal plants maybe lowering the emission standards not from 30% but maybe even to 10% to start, just so there'd be a more gradual change of what people would have to do. And even keeping those gas prices high, I know there must be other forms of public transportation because that was the alternative while the gas was so high and there was a limitation on driving. So keeping all of those policies in place, I feel like would greatly benefit China and would help their overall air quality to be more safe. And from just the proven standards that it did work, just spreading the word to all those new developing countries like India, who is now growing in size, almost relatable to China just by the sheer amount of people and the infrastructure that's building there. They're obviously going to be polluting a lot, so making sure that they start with those standards instead of having to fix it later on, they'll never have the problem. Mongolia is the same, Pakistan, just those countries that can start off on the right foot instead of having to change their problems would really benefit each other. And thank you.